Good evening. Welcome to Entertainment Spectrum once again. I'm Erwin K Roberts, and the thing I'm leaning on here used to be an entire home entertainment system. It was made about 1922 and contains the clock to tell you what time it is and the radio to listen in. All you needed now was a few books to go with it, and that was all the home entertainment that was available just about. Today, of course, we have videotape, we have video discs, we have CDs, we have tape recorders, we have this, we have that, and we have the other thing. And of course, as Entertainment Spectrum viewers know, we have the movies. And we've got another show about fantasy movies, new and old, and some of their collectibles. First of all, we are waiting with bated breath, as the fishermen say, to find out more about the new Indiana Jones film. Indiana Jones and the Lost Crusade was the last title I heard. And fortunately, we've been able to come up with a trailer for Indiana Jones and the Last or Lost Crusade. And we'll be back right after we take a look at Harrison Ford back in action.
Set?
Hardest thing is to keep your hat on. That should do it. Trash.
I feel like killing you, brother.
Just another day at the office.
We'll be back to Indiana Jones and Harrison Ford and the Collectables for same in just a few moments. Joining me now is Todd Schannuth, who is a large quality Star Wars collector here in town. Welcome to Entertainment Spectrum, Todd.
Thank you.
What fascinates you about Star Wars? It makes you want to collect everything you can get your hands on that'll fit in your house.
Well, seeing the movie as a much younger person, it had a big impact on me. I really got into the movie at the time, probably mostly because I was much younger, but it was about the hottest movie of the 70s.
No argument on that, Todd. And of course, the science fiction movie of my younger days was Forbidden Planet, which is, it's space opera of a similar class, and it was par excellence for its day. And I think it influenced me quite a bit as well. But you've stayed with your interest in Star Wars.
Yeah, for almost 10 years now. Been collecting and piling up all kinds of miscellaneous related to it.
Are you married?
No, I'm not.
Okay, well, wait until you are. Then you'll have problems with your collection, as other members of our staff can readily tell you.
Well, I've got my parents right now, and their basement's getting about as full as they want it to get.
That's a familiar problem with collectors like you and me. One of the things I wanted to start out with tonight is this volume called The Modeling of Star Wars. And this is a Japanese edition. Where did you get this, Todd?
I ended up getting that at a collector's convention. Getting it from a bookstore wouldn't be possible because it was printed mostly just for a Japanese market.
Okay. I'm going to try and open this up. The Japanese, as you may know, read from top to bottom and by the English standards from front to back. So this is the opening page. The text in the front is in English, and in the back it's in Japanese. Let's see if I can get a good shot of it here without destroying the book as this one-handed business. There we see it on the. I can see it on the monitor now, and the Japanese are fascinated with science fiction, even bad science fiction, as some of our former guests will tell us. Do you stick with the English language stuff?
For the most part, just because it's the easiest to get a hold of. But by the same right, the foreign material is therefore more collectible.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of foreign material, you have some British stuff here with you. If you'd hold those up. These are the British Star Wars figurines. Would you explain who they are and why they're collectible in this country?
Well, these are Yak Face and Anakin Skywalker. They're packaged for Europe and were not available in the United States as such. Yak Face right here was made only for a European market, whereas Anakin here was made also for the United States, but not packaged this way. He was only available through mail order.
Now, the Star Wars action figures helped change the course of American toys. I think you'll agree. Now, you've got one promotional deal over by you that we'll hold up here. And as I noticed, there's a little sign on the back, folks. It says, "Don't sell." Is that a subtle hint?
That's a note to anybody who's helping me at a convention that this isn't for sale.
Okay. Now, what unique item does this plug aside from the general Star Wars figure line?
Well, this plugs Boba Fett, an action figure that hadn't come out yet when this sign was produced. He's shown here with a rocket-firing backpack, but he was never produced that way, probably for safety reasons.
Now, we'll get this out of the way. Here is a power droid that is advertising the Boba Fett figurine giveaway that you got. What was it, free for 4 wrappers or box tops?
Send in 4 proof of purchase seals, and they would send you a Boba Fett that had a firing backpack.
And of course, the firing backpack never appeared, folks. And one of the things Todd brought along is a statement that was packaged in the Boba Fett that was finally released that said, yes, we know we were supposed to produce this with a rocket-firing backpack, but for safety reasons, we didn't do it. If you don't like it, we'll be glad to send you another figure of your choice. Somehow, I don't think too many people asked for another figure, do you?
No, I don't think so.
Now, you've got the Boba Fett that came by mail from this offer. Where'd that go?
Right.
Okay, now here is Boba Fett in all his glory, looking like he was shipped in a toothpaste box.
Yes, this is the way you got him in the mail in about the early part of 1980. Like we said, he came with the apology for not having the backpack, but since he was the newest figure available, I don't think too many people took him up on it.
And as I recall, the Battlestar Galactica toys had a couple of fatalities reported among young kids who accidentally or on purpose swallowed the small projectiles. Is that the way you remember it?
That's the way I've heard it. A couple of kids choked on Battlestar Galactica firing missiles like this would have had, but apparently Boba Fett was cut out of production in time to avoid shipping anything that might have been dangerous.
And you've never been able to see or hear of one that actually does fire the rocket?
No, I haven't, but in speaking with people at Kenner, apparently they were produced, but they held off on shipping them. So obviously one that does have a firing backpack would be extremely collectible.
Now this is the way the thing was released later on in the stores. Boba Fett in all his glory, or gory as the case may have been. Boba Fett, I think, unfortunately, was killed off rather early in the Return of the Jedi, because he is one of the more interesting characters created for The Empire Strikes Back. Now, explain this large version of Boba Fett, if you would, please.
Okay, this is a figure from the set of Star Wars figures released in a Barbie doll size, more or less about 12 to 14 inches tall. That was an idea of a way to expand Kenner's Star Wars line. There was a set of approximately 10 Star Wars figures that were produced, and then 2 Empire Strikes Back figures. He's one of the only 2 that actually got produced from The Empire Strikes Back.
And the other one was?
The other one would have been IG-88, a bounty hunter from The Empire Strikes Back. He played virtually no part in the movie, but because he looked good, he was made into a child's toy.
Okay. Now, to go from the toy aspect to the art aspect, behind us is a nice piece of artwork. Would you explain this, please?
Okay, this is a 10th anniversary Star Wars poster that was put out in 1987. I was at the Star Wars 10th anniversary convention in Los Angeles in '87 to pick one of these up. It's a signed, numbered edition of the poster that was readily available to almost anyone, unsigned, but 1,500 were made and signed by the artist. This is number 99. I talked to the artist as he was signing it.
Now, are you waiting for George Lucas to start the next trilogy?
Definitely. He hasn't said when he's going to do it, but while we were at the convention in LA, he came out and spoke on the idea of doing the next trilogy sometime, but he wouldn't say when. He jokingly said that he was going to make about 7 more Howard the Ducks first.
That is all we need. I'm still wearing Howard the Duck t-shirts that haven't worn out yet. Do you have any interest in Howard the Duck Part 2?
None whatsoever.
Which is also true of the movie-going public. Now, we'll be back with more of Todd at the recent Snowflake convention. We'll see some of the other collectibles in a montage, and we'll be back later in the studio with the Indiana Jones Collectibles and Collector. So, we'll see you then.
Here I am at a recent science fiction convention in Kansas City, dressed up as Han Solo. Don't normally go out of my way to dress up for it, but since it was local and a friend of mine was with me, we both decided to get into the act. Most of what I sell is Star Wars. What you're going to see now are many of the collectibles that just seem to be overflowing my parents' basement, therefore I'm trying to sell some off. We did a pretty good job this time. There seems to be a lot of interest in the Kansas City area in collecting. There aren't very many conventions per year in Kansas City, but throughout the country you can find several major ones, Denver being the next one. Here are some of the large-size Star Wars figures, which are obviously much more valuable than their smaller counterparts. Here are some of the things that I probably won't sell and that have become permanent parts of my collection. Here we see a large Boba Fett, and me once again minding shop. Here's an example of Kenner's micro collection, created to diversify the Star Wars line. This showed up at the Snowflake convention in Kansas City. The line was discontinued prior to the Return of the Jedi. Seen here is Tim Powell, my friend at the convention, dressed as Indiana Jones, also played by Harrison Ford in the movies. His main interest lies both with Star Wars, but especially Indiana Jones. He has one of the largest collections that I know of in the Kansas City area, going everywhere from the toys to promotional materials only available to studio executives, as we see here. A rare collectible from Paramount. This is a flyer sent to prospective theaters before the release of Indiana Jones 1. two paintings that were included in the kit.
And here's a couple stills.
Obviously,
That,
the truck was changed before the movie.
The person buying the film. As you can see, he looks more
And Indiana Jones himself looks much more like Dick Tracy than Harrison Ford. These are several promotional items, as well as the toys by Kenner. Kenner only produced toys for the first movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, before LJN picked up the contract to do Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Well, we're back in studio, folks, but there's been a slight change in plans. Tim Powell, who was supposed to be with us, ran into difficulties. We'll be chatting with him some other time on Entertainment Spectrum. And Todd Schannuth is back with us, helping save the day one more time. Todd, before we get to the Indiana Jones stuff that Tim loaned us, one curiosity that I've had, because I've heard several versions of the story, and that some of our viewers may have, is how did the name Return of the Jedi come about? Because that was not the first one announced.
Well, the first name for the movie, The Return of the Jedi, was Revenge of the Jedi. A number of things were printed up, things that we have here to show.
And you're holding one in your lap there. If you'd hold that up for the viewers, please.
This is a copy of a supplement to the Yuma Daily News in Yuma, Arizona, where the desert scenes in Return of the Jedi were filmed. Obviously, it was still named Revenge of the Jedi at the time.
And then I have a re-release poster here, which is for the re-release of Star Wars, that says you can see the previews of Revenge of the Jedi when you go to see the re-release of Star Wars. Obviously, Revenge of the Jedi got changed. Do you know why?
I believe the story that I've heard most often is that it was changed from Revenge to Return because Revenge sounded kind of negative towards the characters Skywalker and the good guys.
I'll agree with that, but the story I had heard was that Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, was originally going to be renamed Star Trek II, The Revenge of Khan. So Lucasfilm changed from Revenge to Return, and then Paramount changed from Revenge to Wrath, and there was no necessary change. So I have no idea which one's the case.
I hadn't heard that one yet.
Well, see, it depends on who you hang out with, which story you hear. Maybe we'll catch George Lucas sometime and beat him over the head with a club and get the truth out of him. Now, let's switch now to some of yours and some of Tim's collection of Indiana Jones material. We have a poster on the set here that we'll get to in a minute, but we have on another table here in the studio row upon row of Indiana Jones type material that I think we're going to get to. There we go. If you narrate for us, we have some Kenner figures there.
Coming in, the two figures in the center are by LJN. The Kenner figures are all the way to the right. There's some of the promotional things for the Atari game and the Raiders video cassette. I think you can tell the LJN figures are different from the Kenner figures in that they articulate their arms.
With big nuts and bolts.
Very different from the Kenner models. There's a Desert Convoy truck from the first movie made by Kenner. The Streets of Cairo playset by Kenner, including 3 figures. Then the Map Room playset, including another figure, not sold separately on a card. Behind that, the Well of the Souls playset. Another Kenner toy. And the gum cards, and finally the Arabian horse for the figures.
And that's quite a bit. Now the Kenner figures were fairly successful, weren't they?
Fairly successful, not enough to where Kenner would make figures for both movies.
Okay. Now, one of the things you mentioned there is the gum cards, and I have here what I believe is a complete set of the Raiders of the Lost Ark bubblegum cards. which I don't know how many people collected, but a lot of these were sold, and specialty cards are nothing new. I know I have some Batman and Green Hornet cards from the 1960s that were marketed in a similar vein in my own collection. Now, why don't you show us the difference between the Kenner figure, which you have here, and the other figure. They're quite different, and where the Kenner figures, I think, are better detailed, the other ones are not as well proportioned.
Right. The LJN figures didn't sell well because they're probably not packaged nearly as colorful as the Kenner models. They weren't marketed quite as heavily, and it tended to be more brittle from what I can tell. The Kenner, on the other hand, went hand in hand with the Star Wars figures, the same size. Kids could use them in all their same toys. I think they just went over much better when Kenner was doing them.
Apparently so. I have not heard of anybody contracting them for Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. Have you?
No, I did call Kenner in Cincinnati last week, believe it or not, and they said they weren't going to be doing it. They didn't know if anybody else would or not.
These are kind of the older figures.
Now, we have this is the only large size Indiana Jones figure. Is that not the case?
That's correct.
And the whip is missing. It still has the pistol. The jacket is simulated leather, and the hat, believe it or not, folks, is felt, real felt, like a real fedora is supposed to be. Of course, it's a little more fuzzy than your average fedora. I understand these do not hold their shape well.
No, not at all.
And are there many of these around?
Not that I have found. I would like to have a complete one in the box, but they just seem to be very rare. I got this one from a doll collector who thought that it was a Hardy's Boys doll and sold it to me rather cheaply.
Okay, now you told me one interesting thing about the production of this doll and what it was based on.
Well, it was made by Kenner. I think you can see the similarity between that doll by Kenner and this one by Kenner. They came from the same mold, since it was the same actor playing the same, well, two different parts in two Lucasfilm movies. The Indiana Jones doll is just a redressed Han Solo.
And I think if we can get a close-up here real quick, our viewers at home can, here we're zooming in, our viewers at home can see that this is, except for the garb, even some of the garb is a little bit similar, that these are the exact same critter, only slightly recycled. Now, Tim specializes in the Indiana Jones material, and you specialize in Star Wars. Are you able to give each other reasons why you prefer one to the other, or is it just subjective?
Not really. He has liked the adventure movies, the Indiana Jones type of movies, for a long time. He looks a little bit like Indiana Jones, and he dresses up like Indiana Jones for the conventions. He just has more of a love for that sort of thing than science fiction, which is my main interest.
And comic books, which is mine, which means that I cross all these lines as well. What would you say to a kid who's old enough to read now, old enough to do a little picking and choosing? What would you say to a youngster who's interested in starting to collect some things about his favorite movie characters?
Definitely get them while they're available. If you wait too long, the rare things are already going to be gone and out of stores. Another thing to keep in mind is to get mint condition packages. It seems to be very important to most collectors that things be in their original packages if at all possible.
No dents or anything.
That's the best way to go.
Well, Todd, thank you very much. Thank Tim for sending the stuff down here.
I'll do that.
You know, this is the sort of thing we have with television. You know, the car breaks down or whatever, and we thank you for coming down and filling in for Tim, and we will have Tim on at a later time. Entertainment Spectrum, of course, is always on the lookout for new and different things in and around Kansas City. So, for Entertainment Spectrum, I'm Erwin K. Roberts. Have a good evening, and we'll see you next week.